day of this online workshop. My name is Maria, and I will start off this session by introducing our keynote speaker today. Our keynote speaker is Ersin Han Ersin. Actually, before I go into the introduction, I'll just say a few notes on housekeeping. So I just want to remind you all to use the comments function in this window, where you can leave comments, you can leave questions, reflect openly. And then after the keynote speech, we will have a Q&A session. So whatever questions you want to ask Ersin, please post them in the comment section, and we will deal with at least some of them after his presentation. So after that, we'll have a 10-minute break, and then we will continue with the next session. So we have a packed, interesting schedule ahead of us, so we will dive straight into it. So let me introduce our keynote speaker today. Ersin Han Ersin is an artist and creative director at the award-winning experimental studio Marshmallow Laser Feast. Ersin works with mixed reality technologies, including augmented and virtual reality, amongst different mediums, with explorations of real and orchestrated experiences. In focus is human perception, spatialization, and movement. Just one of Ersin's many previous projects include In the Eyes of the Animal, an immersive virtual reality experience where the viewer experiences a forest through the eyes of different forest species. And so today, Ersin will bring us onto a journey where we get to know his work and thoughts on the nexus of the use, risks, and opportunities with emerging digital technologies and the human experience of reality, perceptions, and sensory stimuli. So, Ersin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Maria. It's great to be here. So I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. I've pasted a series of links on the chat on the comments section, where you can see some of the contact information, detailed links and exhibitions of the projects that I'm going to be talking about today, and some of the papers, articles, and research that's inspired the work that we do, which I'm going to be talking today. So everything will be there. Hopefully you can access from that. I pasted as a whole, but the chat just messed it up, so I did it again. So it's a little bit messy, but I hope you can find everything there. So thank you so much for having me. I'm Ersin Han Ersin. I'm an artist and director, and also creative director of London-based experiential studio, Marshmallow Laser Feast. It's quite mouthful and very strange name. The domain was available, so we jumped on it. So hopefully you'll get a better sense of what we actually do, more so than the name. So I'd like to show you a quick video of some of the selection of work that we've been kind of doing since 2010-11. And our work often spans across different disciplines, starting from kinetic sculpture to large-scale stage shows, as well as video installations, interactive work to mixed reality, and even metaverse these days. So, and the core of what we do is the collaboration. We are a small team, initially started in London, but now spans across a few continents, especially the pandemic. We've been working remotely from all over the world, and as I said, the collaboration is in the center of our processes. Therefore, we bring different expertise around the table to work with, and I guess what became more evident as a process for us in the journey was to conduct the research with the scientists and try to understand a little more, and we learn a lot in that process, and then it, translate that kind of scientific knowledge into experiences. And today I'll be showing you some of the work that I hold very dear to my heart, and the work that is mostly inspired by natural phenomena and made us understand the world around us a bit better, and hopefully it evokes similar curiosity for the audiences when they experience them. As you can see, there are a bunch of different things you are seeing. So these are part of the work that I do. Today I'll be showing you the other ones, not the YouTube. So I guess the technology or the use of the role of technology in our practice takes quite a heavy role. We work as a lab, we do research projects, but also with university research labs to kind of understand and develop certain technologies and innovate in order to accomplish some of the seeming impossible kind of experiences. When I think about technology, I'm going to show you this image where you can see the derby at Epsom, which the horses are galloping, four legs often, and it is a very dramatic scene. And by this point, we've been living with horses for more than 40,000 years. We've kind of domesticated and kind of collaborating with horses for 4,500 years by that point, and yet we thought they were running like this until someone like Muybridge came into play, invented Chrono Photography, which is a mix of shotgun and a camera basically put together to create a series of images, and allowed us to see how the horses, well, how actually they are running. And as you can see, they never gallop like that. So the reason I show this is because I think this articulates the way we look at the technology, the way we utilize technology. It is an enabler that would allow us to see the world beyond the limits of human senses, and then it becomes almost like a checklist for us. Does it enable anything? Then use it. If not, there is no point using technologies for the sake of using technologies. And emerging field of new media arts and immersion, mixed reality, augmented reality, I think this is an important kind of measure for us. The other part, obviously, when we think about the emerging immersive technologies, this is an important disclaimer. I won't make a grim talk, but I show this specific quote every time. Especially when we think about augmented reality and virtual reality, the emerging mediums and metaverse, we just need to remind ourselves who is benefiting from those systems and places, who is investing the most money and resources, and why. As you know, Google and Facebook and Microsoft are three kind of leaders of the field, and we have to question why this is happening, because it is not as simple as my grandma going to Iceland from the comfort of her living room as a digital tourist, but beyond, by simply using a virtual reality headset, the amount of data you can extract from the sensors, the IME sensors on the device is just tremendous. You can, within a few minutes, you can easily identify the sexual orientation, the gender, health status, as well as even political inclination. And these are just the very beginning of what kind of data you can get from there and how you can use this. So it is a scary new field, a new realm. And yesterday we've seen some interesting examples, but also scary examples of what it means to harvest emotional data and how they can be utilized pretty much against us. So I just wanted to drop this on, and the Michael Mandry and Thomas Metzinger's paper, Real Virtuality, was quite interesting, and it was primarily highlighting the global control of this experiential content and what are the potential behavioral manipulations they can offer. I would strongly recommend, if you haven't seen it, I dropped the link in the comment section. But moving on, so we asked this question in 2015: can we reconnect with nature through virtual reality? I know it sounds like a moron, and I'm not delusional techno optimistic hippie. If you want to connect with nature, go to nature, full stop. But then there are things that we can offer utilizing these new emerging mediums and technologies that wouldn't be possible even if you go to nature. So how can we enhance our experience of nature by utilizing these, or even simply making people fall in love with something that is so far from a human? So when we started our journey in 2015, it was In the Eyes of the Animal, which was one of our first virtual reality pieces just after the fourth wave of VR headsets distributing globally. And we were commissioned to do a piece in Grisdale Forest, which you can see in this image. My other normal device. We knew nothing about nature when we got there. We've been using some natural phenomena as an inspiration point. We never actually fully embraced the potential of bringing scientists and scientific understanding into our processes. So we work with Knowledge Museum as well as Salford University to create an experience, but an experience that is not about humans, but more than humans. So the idea was, okay, we see the forest with these eyes, with these senses, but how does the other species in this world perceive the reality here? And in the process, we stumble upon this magnificent term, which changed not just our biological understanding of species, but also our philosophical or ontological understanding of what is it like to be human and what is the body-mind problem. Umwelt simply can be translated to self-centered world. Jacob von Uxkel single-handedly shook our understanding and notion of that separation and what reality is. So we kind of use this as a starting point to build a narrative very simple that is looking into the world, the forest, through the eyes of a midge, a frog, a dragonfly, and an owl. It was more than that, but we kind of ran out of money there. So the process starts with going and scanning these environments for us in order to create the kind of virtual representations. We are using LiDAR scans. It's a laser-based scanner that creates the most accurate representation of an environment. It is mostly used by the architects and surveyors, but it is an interesting tool because it creates almost the closest thing to the real volume of these organic shapes. But over time, it became also evident where some of the species that we scanned over the years are not there anymore. So are we somehow going in places and collecting their digital fossils? What can we do with it? We've open sourced some of those and made it available for public and both institutions and artists, and also working towards a digital preservation kind of platform with these methods. So we took those LiDAR scans of the Grisdale Forest, put it in a headset, which you can see it's hidden in those black boxes that they are wearing. They are wearing these sensorial kits, which a rumble pack that vibrates when you're wearing. So the first thing you see in the forest with your human eye switches to another view. It's a midge where it can see CO2 as if you are flying through the forest while it's photosynthesizing or emitting carbon dioxide in the evenings. So I'm not going to go too much detail, but one, I think, important part we figured in the process, after becoming a midge, then you get eaten by a frog. That's an interesting specimen. The frogs, also the research about frog and their perception is quite interesting, where they somehow outsource. They expand their cognition to their organs, which is very surprising. It just challenges the body mind problem quite drastically. So we kind of looked into the research where they can actually parse data, looking at the world. If the world is not something that they can eat, they ignore the information that happens in their eyes, not in their brain. So you are looking at this pond, scanning it through, and some of the frogs can ribbit, and when they ribbit, they create these waves in puddle of water, which propagates from their body and then hit other objects, and then come back to their body, which they use as a sensing organ. So the entire body is a sensing organ, combined with the sound and the vibrations. So the reality we perceive, our senses, is very, very limited. It's such a tiny slice of what's out there, and by simply looking at their species, can we just spark that curiosity and then show that it's great to be human, but it's amazing to be more than human. Therefore, we can empathize a bit better. And the manifestation of the work obviously evolves over time. Virtual reality is a great medium, such a luxurious medium for an artist. um, uh, you literally land your eyes, your ears, your skin, sometimes taste buds, and your nose to the artist for an uninterrupted uh, a section of time. But from there, obviously, it's a very individual experience. It's more expensive to create and very limited to number of people you can have. So we are creating those master mediums for virtual reality and then adapting into other platforms, such as this video installation, where 200 people can experience the same content as a group. It's not as immersive, but definitely allows us to have a broader conversation. And our journey continues. This is a snippet from the latest project we did with in Project Cornwall. It is a research project, again, looking in two different strands. One is, how can technology enhance the visitor experience in Eden project? Eden is the largest rainforest in captivity, or even outside of the tropics. It's in England, in Cornwall, and they have those magnificent gardens and beautiful trees. And it is an educational charity that allows more than 1 million people to come and experience nature in their doorstep. And their communication is so clear about the climate messaging. Our aim was to give and create another layer on top of the reality that they are experiencing in the space, and then see the world through the eyes of a different specimen, or simply show the inner workings of different parts of the biome. And here they're holding an iPad, going through the Malaysian garden, where there is a Titan Arum, which is one of those unique and strange species that they can mimic thermogenesis. They rise up heat, the temperature in their body, in order to attract flying insects that are looking for blood, or warm-blooded species. So they are tricking. Titan Arum is basically tricking all the flying insects. The difficult thing is, obviously, they flower somewhere between 5 to 20 years, every 5 years or every 20 years, somewhere in between. So it's not always there. How can we communicate this idea, but also show the world through the eyes of an insect that is drawn to the Titan Arum? So this is a research project still going on in small pilots in Eden, and we are hoping to get results to see whether the public found this more interesting, more engaging, or more insightful. Or you can continue your journey and look at the parts of the Malaysian house and the Southeast Asia through the eyes of a bat. This is obviously an interesting question, not just for biology, but for the same philosophical understanding of how can we separate ourselves from our bodies, and is it even possible to understand the reality perceived by other species? But at least this allows us to start that conversation and start wondering about those species. The the Titan Arum leads us to jade vine, which are these really strange flowers. You can see some of them brighter here, and they change their shapes when they have nectar, which produces a different type of echo, the echolocation. So they are sonically driving the bats to them if they have nectar, and or not sending that signal when they don't. This magnificent proof of coevolution where the flora and fauna co-evolve in harmony, collaboration. The idea is just making that visible and exploring the biome through the eye of a bat. And obviously bees are other magnificent species. Our vision is very limited while they can see ultraviolet and infrared parts. For them, some other species have very, very, very special kind of landing strips almost. And what is it like to be a bee? It's a very difficult sentence. What is it like to be a bee if you are flying with the human eyes, and how can we make it visible for you? Again, you can see some of the electrical charges, different ones, which they can feel through their legs. So we are kind of translating that to a vision. So, as a bee, you are seeing the electrical charge of a flower to understand whether it was visited by a different, whether it was visited by a different bee before or not. So I'm going to catch my breath. I think we've got another 15 minutes. So I'd like to invite you to do a very short breathing meditation with me for like 30 seconds. Please close your eyes and take a deep breath through your nose for almost 6 minutes, 6 seconds. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So you can slowly open your eyes. The breathing meditation is the starting point of some of our work, where it not just helps us to bring audience into the right mindset to experience the piece, but also highlight this invisible bond. Because respiration poses a magnificent question: where does your body end and the world begins? Breathing it stands at the very threshold of the voluntary and involuntary, inside and outside, and it is such a potent tool where if we can see this invisible bond, then we understand we're not alone, and no species are actually individual. So we are using breathing as a metaphor to create and visualize this idea. And just when you were breathing a moment ago, 25 billion molecules were just starting into your lungs faster than speed of sound. And it's not just your lungs breathing, your body breathing, but every cell in your body is breathing at the same time. So magnification can also allow us to see that breathing cell to the breathing planet. Everything is connected. And in average, we are doing this 17,000 times, and let's say 8,500 times we are in a dialogue with creatures, and 8,500 times in a dialogue with lots of magnificent trees and grass and shrub and bush. So although we think we are not in any conversation with the natural world, actually we are totally a part of it. And David Abram really nicely frames this as offering ourselves to the world at one moment and drawing the world into ourselves at the next. So this was the starting point of our one of our latest projects called We Live in an Ocean of Air, where 12 people embark on a journey through the custom sensors attached to their headset. They can see their breath coming out of their mouth and then into a tree around them. So they can share a breath with each other as well as with a tree. And they embark on this journey starting from the fourth floor all the way to the canopy. It was a multisensory immersive piece where we carefully designed all processes and everything that happens around it, from the temperature of the room that changes over time with the experience, to the scentscape that we designed specifically for different chapters of the experience. And the underlying research was basically looking into what are the systems that are there but impossible to see with human eyes. So can we put our head inside of a tree and see the flow coming down and delivering tremendous amount of carbon into the soil, and there's the water through xylem going up and spraying into the atmosphere where it's creating these clouds to control the climate. Work with the Natural History Museum again, Salford University, and Eden Project's scientific team to understand and kind of better understand those systems. Funnily enough, no one actually fully agrees on how did the trees suck that water, but we have a better kind of idea than 10 years ago. So nothing is certain, but at least we've got a starting point. The interesting part for us creating these experiences, obviously, looking at the visuals. So I'm coming from a visual communication background where we used to start from a script into a storyboard and then into a format, whether we render as a film, whether we render as an installation. But through the kind of use of these multisensory tools and potential stimuli, we started this journey of looking into cognition and how our senses work, which led us to create a different format when we are actually making the project. How do you link number of sensory input to a single script, because visuals not enough and it doesn't actually directly correspond, because if you are designing scent, it's not like when you deploy the scent, it's sensed by the audience. It takes different time, even based on the age group or based on individuals. So how can you compensate these moments and still create a coherent experience for a number of people at the same time? So we kind of came up with this idea of creating an emotional arc where what kind of feeling we want to evoke for any given moment, and how can we simplify it very much yet still end up in a place where you would fall in love with something so strange like a giant sequoia tree, a tree that can grow up to 120 meters, that can live up 3,500 years, that is so far from your perception. How can you embody it? So looking at those emotional moments and the beats, and then mapping visuals, sound, the scent, the temperature to that emotional arc. And it is an iterative process. There is no direct answer. There are assumptions where we can associate certain feelings and emotions with the colors and the sounds, but none of them are actually 100% certain. So for us, it's a learning curve, and it's interesting. But what it also offers, even just the sense of touch, where we, categorize as a single sense and a single organ, actually has these 6 different receptors, and every receptor works in different frequency, meaning services actually sensed by a different receptor within the skin. So as a visual storyteller or experience maker, can we utilize those things to create more novel experiences and tell some of those stories that are very, very important for the connection we can create with the environment. So I'm finding this part very, very exciting when I look at the future, because the more we kind of drive away from the physical world, natural world, into our digital realm, can we evoke some of those feelings by simply creating experiences? But it is not about the experience itself. It doesn't matter what happens in the exhibition hall. It doesn't matter what you feel there. Can we just put a marker where you can understand and better visualize and build an emotional muscle towards something so not human? Therefore, when you go to a park next time, you have a better and more profound connection to it. I think that's the most important part, and that kind of answers the question: can we reconnect with nature using technology? Only if we can. If yes, but only if we can create that emotional bond afterwards. And um, senses and emotions are entangled fully and profoundly connected, but Aristotelian way of looking at senses very limiting, and we definitely have more than 5 senses, and these are just few of those. Some research show up to 33 different sensory organs within our body. Some of them are kind of looking at our heartbeat. We are not consciously aware of our heartbeat, but our subconscious and our brain is. So research shows when you see a content that is flickering, synchronized with your heartbeat, you're actually 20% more emotionally attached to what you are seeing. That's very interesting. So starting from that point, we included the heartbeat monitor, where when you exist in that very psychedelic world of the carbon dioxide and oxygen, your body manifests itself as a vascular system. So everyone is just a vascular system, but they all pulsing slightly differently, that is synchronized with their own heartbeat. So this was an interesting experiment again. Also, when it comes to opening up the senses, going beyond the dominant sense of visuals, also allowing a broader range of audiences to enjoy and understand and have a deeper connection to the content. And this was one of the images I'm so proud of, where on the right you are seeing the generation of three different generations, a family from grandfather whose birthday was this day, and their son and daughter and their granddaughter there, experiencing the idea of exchanging a breath with each other, but also with a tree. On the left, our oldest visitors, I think it was 86 years old, an 82 years old couple, holding hands, going up the canopy together. And why are we doing these things? I think the idea of animism starts very early. We can recognize movement in very, very early age, in a kind of toddler development phase, where we can differentiate a mechanical motion from a mechanic motion, such as whether a tiger on a branch that is kind of making the branch move, or the branch is moving because of the wind. Those are two distinct differences, which is profoundly connected to our survival. Therefore, we fine-tune our sense of movement. Therefore, we are also blind to the things that are not moving or not exhibiting animism as much as a pet or another human or another specimen um, uh, 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 from the animal kingdom. What do we need to do to create that feeling? Because the only limit, the reason we can't see the animism in flora world or in trees, is because of our perception. Our frame rate is not enough, or we can't see through objects. So these are a series of experiments and experiences where we are looking into kind of apprehending new ways of or inventing new ways of seeing the world with a new pair of eyes. Some of them are manifesting themselves as a video installation where you can see all the inner systems of a giant tree and read with it from distance. Other times you can actually experience in virtual reality headset or a handheld device like a tablet or augmented reality headset. I'm gonna quickly show a few others. This is an upcoming exhibition that will be in the Barbican Centre in London, where we've scanned a Lepanthenthera tree from the Colombian Amazon, work with the local ethnobotanist and interview the indigenous people and their stories, as well as doing an ecological survey to understand the relationship between other species and our tree, and then extensive field recording to create the soundscape. But obviously, the second part is where we work with the Eden Project's scientific team again to look at the inner systems, how mycelium work in this world, how oxygen and carbon dioxide change and move around, how certain species live in symbiosis, and what kind of chemical conversations happening there. So the video piece is basically over time manifesting each of those moments in a contemplative way, where you can sit down and watch forever, hopefully. And finally, before I finish, this is the other part of the research project that we are doing with Eden Project Cornwall. That it is an extended reality experiment, or we can consider as augmented reality sculptures. So two parts of the research going hand in hand. One part is enhancing the visitor experience on site, where they can see beyond the human senses using tablets and augmented reality headsets. But the second part is, how can we extend the Eden project beyond its physical borders, physical biome, into care homes, schools, and whoever wants to kind of have a moment in nature through their devices. So place those 360 cameras in the biome that are moving in two directions. Some of them are vertical movement, looking at the water fluxes and carbon sequestration, while also highlighting how trees are regulating the climate. And the other one is looking at the species world, or looking at the world through the eye of different species. And this is really important because rainforests are a vital part of the planet's life support system, an invisible world of interconnected systems and cycles that we all depend on. So they provide us fresh air, clean water, fertile soil, and how to keep the climate in balance, basically. The more we know about them, the more we care about them. Therefore, we can more engage and act to protect them. Those are some of the early sketches looking at how water gets kind of taken by the mycelium across different species, and how phloem and xylem moving in opposite directions, creating these quite interesting two-way highways. And finally, we will launch the website very soon, which you can connect wherever you like and experience these exchanges and see and witness in the first hand how trees are regulating the climate in a very animated way, so we can see the life beyond the human senses and probably and hopefully care for them a little more. I think I'm on the beat. So I'm sorry if I was a little bit rushed and fast, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for a fascinating presentation. It was a true pleasure to both see and hear more about your work. I want to encourage everyone who is listening to please write down your questions, comments, reflections in the comments section so that we can bring up your questions to actually discuss them directly with Ersin. And I have a few questions here. I will take the liberty and actually beginning with asking you. I would like you to elaborate a little bit on the importance of sensuality of experiences today. Often information comes based on an audiovisual experience, but of course these extended reality technologies, then they open up for many more possibilities. So what do you think that the possibilities of engaging more senses in information absorption can play for us? How do you think they actually change the game?
Sure. Some of our most of our profound childhood memories are not just visuals. Often it's linked to a place. There's a smell associated with it, maybe sound, or even the temperature that you remember. So we don't construct reality just with audiovisual cues, but we perceive reality through a number of different senses. So one part of it is obviously the more senses we can utilize and stimulate to tell some of those narratives, the more memorable they'll become. But also it becomes more accessible because audiovisual is not the only senses we perceive reality, and there's huge divergence in the way we perceive world. So it opens up other possibilities beyond just visuals and audio. But also, when it comes to senses, we can think and talk about how does it feel to be something other than human. This is a little more difficult to just imagine with visuals, but when you think about being able to sense the world uh, with your fingertips, with your hair, with your back, with your ears, it's just opening up these magnificent opportunities. So for every work we do, we tend to kind of also, I need to acknowledge there is a trade-off where the physicality of the work often limits ourselves to a place. So we are trying to diversify the output of it, where we can create a theatrical performance in the metaverse, like we did, which was called Dream, which reaches to 80,000 people in one go in the comfort of their home and giving that performance. On the other hand, In the Eyes of the Animal has been traveling for the last 7 years almost, non-stop, being to more than 60 different countries and only to 30,000 people with the multisensory setting. So as much as I'd love to do all projects with the sensorial kind of manifestation, sometimes we are diversifying in order to reach a broader audiences.
Thank you. And I see that we have a question in the comments field that actually conveniently connects to my next question. Those of you in the audience who were here yesterday will recognize that we touched upon the concepts of empathy and stewardship yesterday. And that also connects to something that you said now, Ersin, about both possibilities but also limitations. So my thought is, what is also in the question in the comments field, there is obviously an enormous potential with these technologies to communicate information in novel ways. But something that I have experienced in my previous work with virtual reality, and particularly when I went to a favela a few years ago and we created a virtual reality experience of what life is like in the favela. A problem that we found, or a limitation rather, is that people got engaged in the VR experience that they viewed. We could bring the VR experience to meetings across the world and show it to decision makers who would probably never otherwise have been familiar with the reality of life in the favela. But then came the question, what can I do? And so my question to you now, Ersin, is what are your thoughts on how we can harness this emotional response to technologies like VR, AR, potentially supported by AI, and actually encourage people to act on that emotional response in a way that can work in favor of the biosphere, of reconnecting people to the biosphere, of actively engaging in taking responsibility for the people's living environment and for the natural environment. And maybe a starting point there is to think of, okay, who actually benefits from these technologies? So I will leave the floor to you.
Okay. So I guess the first part of the question is about closing the loop. For us, as I said, is more about the climate crisis, and the way we are tackling climate crisis is a all hands on deck operation. So in that respect, creating awareness or simply connecting people to places that they've never felt connected before is a good starting point. Become more receptive to understand, because not everyone should go to the Amazon rainforest in order to care for it, but we tend to care more places that we know better. Therefore, can we bring an experience that you can feel connected to a tree from the Amazon rainforest? Therefore, can we close the loop by simply making you fall in love with it or feeling connected to it? And then when you see a petition, when you have an option, a voting option, or when you have a simple life change option, such as choosing to eat meat or not, and that influence it. I think there are direct and indirect benefits, and the direct benefits, I suppose, taking those experiences into decision makers' steps, as you said. In UN is one of those places that lots of our colleagues bring those experiences to the decision makers. But the second part is also creating more of those, not just to talk about it, but also to create, allow that space. the one dilemma, we don't have an answer, to be honest, because I'd like the work to be a common ground where a climate denier and an activist can come and experience and enjoy it. And if we can create a space for that, then probably all the other, elements of our activism will come into play to convert it. So I guess using it as a catalyst is what we are trying to do, and trying to bring it to as many people as possible. But I don't have a fully definitive answer where this is how we close the loop, because I think we're going to try everything we can to do that. We don't have too much time either.
Beautiful. I see that we are actually running out of time, so I think those are perfect words to end with. I want to thank you again so much for this presentation. It's been fascinating to watch and to listen to you, and I look forward to following your work in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And for you who are with us now, watching and listening, we will take a 10 minutes break. And then we will reconvene in the session after this. So when you leave the main lobby to join again, then please go to the session. And thank you so much for being with us for this first part of today.